When the Geneva Quantum Chronology Initiative's subterranean lab was breached last week, the alarms didn't ring. Standard security protocols didn't even register a physical intrusion. The missing asset was the Absolute Else prototype, a highly unstable experimental device housed in the center of the facility. If a traditional thief had bypassed the locks and walked out with it, we would have camera feeds and broken glass to analyze. But the prototype wasn't carried out of the room. Instead, the specific macro event of its creation was collapsed. The thief deleted the day the prototype was assembled, meaning it suddenly, retroactively, never existed in the first place. Traditional law enforcement is useless against a macro-temporal deletion. You can't dust for prints or follow a paper trail when the perpetrator has meticulously ensured the crime legally and historically never occurred. To solve a case with no traditional evidence, the retrocausal division has to look for something else entirely. We have to stop tracking the stolen object and start tracking the physical, measurable scars that the universe leaves behind when a piece of time is ripped out. Handling a chronological vacuum requires an entirely different set of forensics. We are looking for the structural damage left on reality itself. The first rule of missing time relies on probability density. When an event is forcibly stolen from the timeline, the immediate surrounding area becomes heavily saturated with unfulfilled probability. The universe knows something is missing. We can measure this because probability density has physical mass. In a localized vacuum, ordinary matter resists kinetic movement. Sliding a coffee mug across the room feels like punching through wet concrete. This comparative technical readout shows our baseline test for that drag. On the left, a standard brass pendulum swings at a normal speed dictated by standard gravity. On the right, an anomalous pendulum within a crime scene swings exactly 14.2% slower. By walking outward and testing the exact point where that kinetic drag disappears, investigators can map a 50-meter perimeter. That radius acts as a temporal metal detector, proving definitively that an extraction occurred. Once we prove an extraction happened, we have to find exactly where the thief was standing. For that, we move past physical weight and look at mechanical disruption. Time doesn't just sit still when it's broken. The universe will automatically try to patch the hole by looping backward over the missing event, a defense mechanism known as chronological backflow, or the watch effect. You can see the watch effect happen in real time. Within the affected radius, physical mechanical gears completely jam from the sudden shift in kinetic friction. But digital or quartz crystal oscillators will smoothly begin calculating time in reverse. This radar grid maps how we weaponize that backflow. Highlighted data points represent digital clocks flipped to negative values. Connecting the boundaries of these malfunctions isolates a perfect circle. The dead center is ground zero. Standing at ground zero of the Geneva breach was Dr. Elena Vance, the former co-director of the GQCI. Her methodology doesn't use standard explosives or cyber warfare. She utilizes a localized particle dampener, a machine designed to isolate specific macro events and collapse their causal wave functions into nothing. She avoids traditional theft by targeting structural dependencies. If she wants to destroy a corporation, she doesn't steal their funds. She erases the specific Tuesday when their building was zoned, causing the entire corporate structure to legally and physically collapse in the present day. She is, fundamentally, an architect of unmaking. By removing the foundational pillars of our history, she leaves the present timeline inherently unstable, waiting for the slightest pressure to implode. To stop Vance, investigators finally cornered her operating her highly volatile particle dampener inside an abandoned clock tower. A machine capable of unmaking reality requires absolute, unbroken mathematical precision to function. That precision is its greatest vulnerability. Erasing an event creates a paradox. To keep the universe from immediately snapping back to its original state, Vance's dampener has to constantly calculate that paradox and balance the equation. If you introduce a completely external, undocumented piece of conflicting data directly into the dampener's field, the processor cannot solve the contradiction. It enters a recursive loop, trying to calculate two opposing truths at exactly the same time. The machine is, at its core, a calculator of absence. The only way to break it is with undeniable physical proof of presence. The retrocausal division didn't bring an advanced weapon to the clock tower. They brought raw documentation, specifically the original case file detailing their investigation into the breach. The investigator took that physical, handwritten folder and threw it directly into the event horizon of the dampener's energy field. The machine was actively running the math to prove the laboratory breach never existed. Simultaneously, it had to process the physical matter of a case file documenting the exact details of that same breach. Faced with an unresolvable logical contradiction, the recursive loop quickly peaks and the localized anomaly violently implodes into itself. The paradox breaks and the timeline defaults to its original unbroken state. Reality is mathematically resilient. Ultimately, the greatest defense against a stolen history is the physical weight of present evidence.